What would it be like to be invisible, unseen by everyone, knowing you're just like everyone else, except you feel ignored and never recognized? The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison depicts such a life. The book takes place in the early 1930s. The gloom and Great Depression is present in the book and is shown through the protagonist's struggles. The man is initially perceived as invisible, as he's knocked into and ignored by people he's confronted by. The reader then realizes that the man is an African American from the South, and he's not actually invisible. During the Great Depression, no race was hit harder than the African Americans. On top of the common struggle for occupation, the racial insignificance added to the compromising of their jobs. Over half of the African Americans in the South are unemployed. The reason being, many whites in the area that were unemployed would replace blacks in their workplace. Many African Americans tried to tackle the problem by traveling to different states. But as a result, they were still faced by the everlasting racism by whites in their areas. Ralph Ellison illustrates the struggle of African Americans through the historical events of the Great Depression. Ellison effectively portrays the hardships of the narrator to become relevant in society. Most obvious, the narrator's name is never said throughout the entire book. He has no identity, unlike many of the other characters in the novel. Similarly, the book is written in first person, allowing the narrator to recount events that happen in the book. It is revealed that the narrator lives underground and wishes to tell the story of his life. The book proceeds to tell about all the events that happened during his life. The protagonist is given an opportunity to speak in front of some prominent white men from his town. He is a very gifted public speaker. Nonetheless, he creates a very great speech in front of the men. He's awarded a scholarship to a college where he's considering attending in New York. But the only way he's going to be given the scholarship is if he fights other youth blacks just like himself. The black youths, like the protagonists, were blindfolded and forced to fight each other in boxing fashion. The narrator is in a constant search for his identity. Nonetheless, there are many small events that take place that really shape his life, because he doesn't experience much, but many of the small things that most human beings might consider nothing are a lot to him in lifetime experiences. For instance, he's given the opportunity to be Mr. Norton's driver at his new college. After driving around one day, Mr. Norton brings up a story about a man named Jim Trueblood. Jim Trueblood impregnated his own daughter. He was an uneducated black man. The protagonist then took Mr. Norton to a bar known as Golden Day. The bar generally serves African Americans, so it was odd that Mr. Norton had came to this bar. The African American veterans that were also drinking at this bar got into an argument. Mr. Norton, during this fight, was knocked unconscious. Soon, the protagonist became very feared and took Mr. Norton and left the bar. On their drive back, everything was silent. It was at this moment that the narrator, for the first time, started to feel identity. He started to feel a sense of responsibility, and he felt like he was part of the world. This is the first time where he says the following. Here within this quiet greenness, I possessed the only identity I had ever known, and I was losing it. In this brief moment of passage, I became aware of the connection between these lawns and buildings and my hopes and dreams. I wanted to stop the car and talk with Mr. Norton, to beg his pardon for what he had seen, to plead and show him tears, unashamed tears like those of a child before his parent, to denounce all we'd seen and heard, to assure him that, far from being like any of the people we had seen, I hated them, that I believed in the principles of the founder with all my heart and soul, and that I believed in his goodness and kindness in extending the hand of his benevolence to helping us poor, ignorant people out of the mire and darkness. I wouldn't do his bidding and teach others to rise up as he wished them to, teach them to be thrifty, decent, upright citizens, contributing to the welfare of all, shunning all but the straight and narrow path that he and the founder had stretched before us. If only he were not angry with me. If only he would give me another chance. Throughout the book, the narrator's constant search for identity is made extremely difficult by the struggles of the time period. A huge cause of the difficulty is the Great Depression's toll on African Americans. The narrator manages to find identity in times where he may be in a bad situation, but he still feels present. Moreover, Ralph Ellison in The Invisible Man strongly expresses the symbolic relationship between the Great Depression and African Americans.